The Presidential Precinct is proudly one of the 8 institutions who have hosted Mandela Washington Fellows each year since the inception of the program in 2014. Over 250 fellows have come to the precinct with a bold vision and departed on a lifelong journey of impact for their community and our world. In this special episode of the book series, we hear the story of a fellow who was selected for the presidential precinct from Zimbabwe. Enjoy the show. Good morning to you all, our viewers and listeners living and working in different parts of the world. I'm happy today to be joined by the Mandela Washington Fellows for the year 2024. These are fellows from Zimbabwe. There are several other fellows that were selected from African countries, and there are also other fellows that were selected from Zimbabwe who could not make it to this particular episode, but we're going to cover them in the next episodes that we are going to be discussing about the Mandela Washington Fellowship. So we want to know about these programs, and we want to know the stories of all these fellows that were selected so that it can benefit our audience and any of those people that might be interested in also applying for the Mandela Washington Fellowship in the next application cycle. Now let me invite Chiedza to talk about a story and the kind of work that she's doing. She's also a presidential precinct fellow, and she's also currently in Virginia with Mr. Prince. So Chiedza, this is your time.
Thank you so much, Anotida, for having me and for inviting me to be a part of this program. So yes, I am Chiedza Patience Mlingwa. I come from Zimbabwe, and I'm a 2024 Mandela Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders Fellow under the Leadership in Civic Engagement track at the Presidential Precinct. And as my fellow colleague indicated, it is a consortium of 2 premium universities, William and Mary and University of Virginia. It is also in partnership with 3 former 3 homesteads of 3 former presidents of the United States. We've got James Madison's Montpelier, we've got Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, and we also have Monroe's Highland. So for me, the story of how I came to be a part of this fellowship, I recently wrote an article about it, which was actually published on the Presidential Precinct website, where I was just reflecting on the journey that brought me here. And I titled that article, When the Dots Finally Connect, because that is exactly what has been happening. I did not know it at the time, but it is as if everything that I experienced years before this was transpiring to bring me here. When I applied for this fellowship, I did not think I had the necessary credentials to apply. So at a certain moment, I started the application and then I stopped for a number of days, especially when you go to the personal statement section, because that one requires you to be a little bit more specific. They ask you questions like, okay, so what are you going to do with this fellowship when you're done? Should you get given the fellowship? What will you do with it afterwards? You're asked about volunteering opportunities. You're asked about resilience in leadership, and for you to just detail a situation in which you showed resilience, and when I finally got back to it, because there's a voice that kept telling me to go back. There was a relentless voice that kept telling me, you need to complete that application. You need to complete that application. And I went back and I realized I actually had a compelling story to tell, One of the things that I do, let me just try to take it back a little bit to give context. So I'm currently employed as a research and advocacy specialist at one of the biggest human rights coalitions in Zimbabwe called the Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum. So it's a coalition of 21 human rights-based organizations, and they have all each their individual mandates, but we are all collectively concerned with the reduction of the instances or levels of organized violence and torture at the instigation of the state and its ancillaries. So in my research role, I monitor, I document human rights violations. I also consolidate high impact research publications on organized violence and torture. For example, quarterly political and human rights violations reports. Last year, I was responsible for a report called The New Era. So this was a play on words. This was just after our election, where you'd expect to have a new era, but we called it The New Era because there were so many issues around procedural irregularities with the manner in which just the entire electoral process unraveled. So, and the fact that we've remained in a sustained post-election mode, even after the elections and an ongoing unresolved legitimacy crisis in our country. So those are the kind of research reports that I'll be part of, including one called Trial by Pretrial Incarceration, which was a collective effort. And we were basically talking about this trend where, politically targeted individuals are being subjected to persecution by prosecution, being jailed on trumped up charges and then being kept in jail in remand prison, for example, without being granted bail, which is a constitutional right. Job Sikhala being, a case in point which remains a blight on our human rights landscape to this day, because he ended up staying for nearly 2 years in prison and without even going to trial. And by the time he then went to trial, he gets acquitted on the charges. But by that point, he had already spent time in pretrial detention for a period that was longer than the maximum sentence available for the crime for which he was being charged on anyway. So these are the kind of things I write about, that I document, and we give recommendations just to keep the government accountable and to also conscientize the public that this is really what is going on. Because unless somebody documents, then awareness will not be there. So in my advocacy role now, what I do is I implement advocacy initiatives at local, national, and basically national, actually regional and international level on behalf of the organization. So for example, last year, I was the only junior officer that represented my organization at the African Commission of Human and People's Rights during their 77th ordinary session in Arusha, Tanzania. And here's where the dots finally start connecting. I traveled with a board member of a former board member of our organization and an alumni of the Mandela Washington Fellowship. I didn't know it at the time, right? But we traveled together and we implemented this activity and it went so well. And I had no idea, that he was a part of this. He was once a part of this, right? So how I got then to be a part of this organization, if you go back to my article, I sort of approached the executive director at the time, and I was given a research intern position in 2021. And during that time, I began working myself up and went to being a research officer up until the point where I now head the research and documentation department. And, when I applied for this, and I then got the confirmation, I got the interviews and everything, I started being more interested in this fellowship. I didn't even know about it up until then. I go on the website and I find one of the people who's featured prominent on the website is the person I've been working with this whole entire time. And he ends up being my mentor, He ends up really walking me through the process, giving me pointers about how to go about, conducting the interviews and responding in the interviews and everything like that. And when I finally came here, we were given focus project worksheets where you are supposed to start outlining your strategic vision for change. And you come here not knowing who that person is going to be. So we were introduced virtually. And as this individual is telling me about herself, Nancy Hopkins, she then indicates that she came to Zimbabwe in 2020. And guess what? She worked with the person who was my executive director, also worked with the individual who was the fellowship alumni who was now mentoring me. And we actually could have met in 2020, but we didn't, because at that time I was not yet working for this particular organization. So the time was not yet ripe for us to meet, but here I am in the United States of America. I didn't even try to meet with her, but the doors connected eventually for us to be able to meet in this place at the right time, and with the right people. So the tagline for the presidential precinct is power of place, power of ideas. So in my article, I write, and this is what I say, that for me to be here at this place, at this time, with these people underscores the importance and the significance of the power of grace, timing, and placement, because it brings together a unique subset of individuals, each coming with such a powerful portfolio, and you can bounce off of each other's ideas. Power of place, power of ideas. So this is how I ended up here. And for me, it has just been an amazing process. It is an amazing experience of networking. So I know Prince spoke about the academic sessions. I want to speak more about what I have been getting from this experience, right? So networking, you get to network with the other 25. So it's 24 actually, because we're 25 in total. We are 28 groups, right, of 25 people at each institute. So we are 25 in total here, the presidential precinct, 25 fellows and 3 of us are from Zimbabwe. And we get to network with fellow young African leaders. I've been inspired. People are doing amazing work out there, and their life stories. The other day, one of our fellows just brought tears to our eyes as she recounted a personal experience, a personal leadership journey. And, you get to realize that nothing in life is a coincidence, So for me, it has been networking with my fellows. It has been networking with people that I have been meeting for the first time here in the United States. And guess what? In 2016, I started a master's in constitutional litigation and human rights development. One of the people that I referred to multiple times in that thesis taught me an academic session today, and I got to meet him face to face. The doors keep connecting. I had no idea I would ever meet this. It was inconceivable to me that I would meet this man face to face and actually get to be taught or to have an academic session delivered by him in person, and we get to be in the same room at the same place. And as he was introducing himself, I said, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this. You cannot make this up. The doors just keep connecting for me, and it's just an amazing experience. And as well, what I've managed to do, one of the 2 biggest, probably most impactful sessions for me is that I have a strategic vision for change, right? And my strategic vision for change is the establishment of my own not-for-profit organization. And I wanted to be in my mother's legacy, my late mother's legacy, and I have envisioned it as the Sibongile Empowerment Trust. My late mother's first name was Sibongile, right? So this Empowerment Trust seeks to nurture growth, build character, instill confidence in young women leaders from disadvantaged or marginalized backgrounds or societies like myself, because throughout this whole time, as events were leading up to this, I never had any kind of guidance. I never had any kind of mentorship. I never had anything to give me direction. I would sort of stumble upon the next thing, and the next thing would lead to the next. And I don't want a young woman, or if I look back to 10 years ago, to the version of myself 10 years ago, I would have loved to have had something to anchor me more, to root me more, to instill confidence, because, during my academic career, I never held a single leadership position at all. I excelled sometimes academically, but I never held a leadership position. So I never thought of myself as a leader. The Mandela Washington Fellowship has made me start seeing myself as one. So I want young ladies to be able to realize, especially young women leaders from who are disadvantaged, marginalized societies, to realize that, you actually can be a leader. You have it in you. You just need probably that seed to be planted. Okay, so the Empowerment Trust will seek to do that. I recently had an opportunity to practically apply my vision at William and Mary. And how we did this, so we had a hospitality dinner, right? We have these hospitality dinners where an American family takes you out for dinner and you get to see them in their homes and they cook for you. And, we enjoy American food, really good food. I had salmon, guys. So you'll enjoy that. I just want to tell those who are thinking of being a part of this. There's so much. Trust me, the
Yes.
networks you make are the biggest thing you will take away from this fellowship. It's the networks.
Mm-hmm.
Establish genuine connections.
Mm-hmm.
Maintain them. That is what I would say. So I went to this family. It was myself and 3 others. And I connected with Cindy Huddleston, who is a former University of Virginia Dean of Graduate Admissions. And it turns out, right, that she is in partnership with the William and Mary's women's basketball team. So this is young women of like 17, 18 years of age. And they are in the, or 1920s, I suppose. So they are in the women's basketball team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these guys apparently do not have the opportunity to travel because they are also doing academics while at the same time trying to juggle that with sports. So the coach of the basketball team, of that women's basketball team, Coach Erin Dickerson Davis, she's intrigued by the fellowship. She hears we're there. And she says, you know what, she would like for that women's basketball team to be able to get some type of mentorship and inspiration and motivation from fellows from the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And then Cindy reached out. I volunteered purely on a voluntary basis. I went myself and my Nigerian fellow called Nafisa Atiku and Nicolette Matuku, who is also a fellow Zimbabwean. We went, the 3 of us, we volunteered our time and understand this is a very hectic schedule, but some things you understand. One of the things about being a leader is selflessness. You need to put your needs sort of in the back bench and think about the greater good, think about the bigger picture rather. It's not just about self. It ceases to be about self. It's about serving others. It's about showing up for others in a meaningful and impactful manner. So this is what I told myself. And I went there. We met these girls, and so they don't get an opportunity to travel. So through meeting us, they got to have an international experience, a global experience, right? And I, through coming to America, was also getting to have my own global experience, first time in the United States of America. So it's not just about what you come here to learn, it's also about what you can also learn from others and teach to others, So anyway, we had this session where we were put on 3 tables. Nafisa had her own people, Nicolette had her own, and then I had my own table. And what I decided to do was to tell them about my life. I told them I went to boarding school for 6 years, and boarding school really grounded me. So I wanted them to walk away being value-oriented individuals. So I emphasized my values, the principles that I adhere to, because if you are going to inspire people, you need to be grounded. You need to have values. You need to be very, very value-centric. So for me, I felt I had to tell them, these are the values that I subscribe to. It's empathy. I believe in leading from a position of empathy, leading from a position of humility, as well as leading from, you have to be able to inspire the next generation. And there's a quote that I particularly love to refer to when it comes to this type of a legacy, and I'll read it out for you. And it says, if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, to learn more, do more, and become more, then you really have done what needs to be done as a leader. So sometimes it's not about being at the forefront all the time or taking personal glory all the time. It's just about inspiring, lighting that spark that will fuel the next spark and start something beautiful, start something magical. My name is Chiedza. It means being the light. And that is exactly what being here means for me. I now take it to mean I must be the light. I must let my light so shine,
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, that's what this is for me. Yeah. So
That's
let me end
nice.
there for now. Yeah.
That's really nice, Chiedza. Thank you so much for that. That was deep and mouthful. I thank you so much for those submissions. I would now want to get in the third speaker, the third fellow. These are not from the presidential precinct in Virginia, but they are currently in Delaware. That's where they are best, and I'll give them the time to speak about the work that they are doing and to tell their stories. So I'll start with Simbarashi Wundri.